This is Orest, the old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. Join me regularly as I share my interviews with experts on various topics that include anti-aging, sex, relationships, and other things that will help you create that life that you want. Now, I want you to do three things. First of all, I want you to subscribe so you don't miss any of this life-changing information. 2, share it with others. And 3, review. Be sure to do all 3. And now for our podcast. Now I want to make sure that you do 3 things. 1, subscribe so you don't miss any of these episodes. 2, share it with your friends because you know they need to hear this information also. To get this stuff so they can have a kick-ass life. And 3, review this podcast. And if you've got a bad review, that's fine too. This is Orest, the official old guy at oldguytalkstome.com, a podcast dedicated to helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love. And if you don't create it for those that you love, well, your life is going to suck. There's no doubt about it. Major. And one of those things, well, we're going to talk today with a couple of people. One, Patrick Wanis. He's a world-renowned expert. He kind of talks funny because he kind of has a broken English. English is not his first language. He's from Australia, so
we actually speak the real English.
Oh, bullshit! You guys speak prison English down there. We know you're.
Well, that's the real English.
Yeah. So he's an expert on behavioral therapy, specializing in the areas of interpersonal relationships, trauma, and human motivation. He's been on many programs, including the BBC, Russian news agency, MSNBC. Did you happen to meet Putin? Fox News and CNN. And he's been focused on examining the role of the mind, body, and physiology. And he's also the first person to do a clinical hypnotherapy session on U.S. national TV. And he's also done a number of things online in terms of psychology and behavioral assessments. He is here today joined by a guest who's already been on my program a couple of times, Chris Burres, who's a research engineer and scientist, and his primary mission is to help people live longer, healthier, pain-free lives, and he has a diverse background and a number of inventions and manufacturers. He's also the CEO and founder of SES Research, which produces ESS60, C60, which is a powerful antioxidant, over 170 times more powerful than vitamin C, and has all sorts of benefits that you should consider. And there's going to be a link to get that, and there's actually a promo code so you can get a little bit off on that first purchase. Just for everyone to know that my wife and I have been using ESS C60, I think since October, maybe a little bit longer than that. Just to kind of know, my wife doesn't believe in taking anything, but she takes this, and we've noticed that it's helped us with several things. It helps my hair grow faster. It has not filled in the bald spots on my head, but it has made the other places grow faster. I sleep better, don't have energy dips in the afternoon, amongst other things. And so I want to welcome both of you. That was a really long-winded intro. I don't know that I get to the point a lot faster. What am I? I gotta admit to both of you guys may have never heard this, but I've said this before. I love the sound of my voice. I really do. I just want, when I talk, I want to give myself a big hug.
Is that your radio voice or all the time?
All the time. My radio voice, but just all the time. I'm just totally in love with myself. Actually, not. I'm just being facetious. But Patrick, I want to start. Welcome to the program. Let me let you give a few words in, and before I dig in with my first question here.
Thanks, Orest, for having us.
All right, thank you. So, Patrick, it's like Jeopardy. The first question to you, Patrick, is.
Patrick, I'll take human nature for 500.
Yeah. So tell us, what is the relationship between the mind and the body?
For a very long time, Western medicine has treated the mind and body as separate. And of course, I think most of us know it's a common, I think, understanding that there's a tremendous link between the mind and the body. In fact, there's what we call the brain-gut axis. The brain-gut axis means that there's a link between your stomach and your brain, and they both affect each other. For example, 80% of serotonin is created in the stomach. Serotonin is more than a feel-good chemical. People who are often feeling down or sad or depressed will have low serotonin levels. What we recognize now is that our thoughts manifest in our body. Now, that sounds quite esoteric. It sounds very metaphysical. It sounds new age. So let me express that in a much more scientific term. Basically, your thoughts will either trigger the fight or flight response. They'll put you into the sympathetic nervous state or the parasympathetic nervous state. So what we want to be most of the time, unless we're exercising or unless there's an immediate threat, we want to be engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. That's rest and digest. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response. Your thoughts change or put you into a fight or flight response or to a rest and digest state, as well as directly affecting your endocrine system. So once you affect your endocrine system, now your emotions also change, as well as the state of your physical body. So there's this extraordinary loop between your thoughts, your mind, and your body, and then back again. So as I said right at the beginning, just think of the fact that 80% of serotonin is created in your stomach. But what creates the imbalance in your stomach isn't necessarily just the food we take in, it's also the thoughts that we take in. It's the thoughts that we develop, it's the thoughts that we harvest, it's the thoughts that we keep planting that affect our entire state. And you know this as well, Orest, because if you think about if someone comes and gives you some amazing news, you suddenly feel completely different. And all that's happened is there was a thought that this is great or this is bad. And then that triggers this whole series of a release of chemicals in your body, starting in your brain, neurotransmitters, and hormones are also neurotransmitters, that then changes everything. So yes, you mentioned right at the beginning, you've gotten help from My Vital C, from ESS 60 to avoid those fatigue dips in the afternoon. But even our thoughts can create those fatigue dips in the afternoon. If there's a sense of hopelessness or helplessness or powerlessness, that's directly linked to low thyroid or an underactive thyroid. So think about it both ways. If you have an underactive thyroid, not only do you feel fatigued, you have a sense of apathy, a sense of helplessness. And if you have a sense of helplessness or apathy or hopelessness, that also translates into the balance or the imbalance of your hormones and endocrine system.
I think especially now during the times that we're living in with COVID and the lockdowns and everything else, people are experiencing a lot more negative emotions in solitude or in a very, very small group. And so I think that those emotions are really affecting us physically in lots of significant ways. It's an interesting phenomenon. I think that many people also have moved on from some emotions of anxiety and fear to more anxiety, fear, and anger at this point.
Yeah, so in fact, that was sort of how Chris and I got together. Well, we didn't get together as a result of this. We got together many years ago when we met at a social event, but we got together to actually set out to help people because of what was being experienced during the pandemic in terms of confusion, uncertainty, fear, anxiety, sadness, sorrow, frustration from the lockdown, anger at potentially if you perceived your rights being taken away, your freedoms being taken away, and of course, rumination and depression. And so Chris and I said, let's set out to help people. How can we do that? And the first thing that I set out to address was the emotions, or is the emotions, because there's an umbrella of emotions that we've all experienced, some of which I just listed. And then I created an audiobook, which I'll give to your audience for free without any names or email addresses, Neutralize the 7 Emotions That Are Holding You Hostage Right Now. And then I also created a guided meditation. And what was very interesting was how so many people were stuck at home, but instead of feeling energetic, they were feeling tired. You say, well, why? Because they should be able to rest and therefore have more energy. But if you lose meaning, if you lose purpose, if you don't have a reason to get up during the day, if you don't have something that really inspires you and motivates you, and if you have fear and uncertainty, again, it impacts your endocrine system, it impacts your sleep. We haven't even talked about that the thoughts also affect the quality of your sleep. And then the quality of your sleep also, in turn, interrupts and negatively impacts your thoughts and emotions. And Chris came up with a really good term for that.
It's the horrible emotional sleep spiral.
Yeah, whereby you're not, because of the various thoughts which are triggering emotions and then preventing you from sleeping properly, then you're not in a state to process and deal with the emotions, deal with the challenges in front of you. And then that also leads to more of either negative thoughts or pessimistic thoughts or thoughts of anger or frustration or helplessness or hopelessness. So we need to look at ourselves as a whole, and specifically to understand that life is experienced or lived in 4 realms: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. The mental is our thoughts, the physical is our body, and anything that we can physically touch, anything that we can actually touch. Physical can also relate to, to the state of our body. And then emotional is the emotions and how our relationships and how that affects our thoughts and our body. And then spirituality is about our connection to each other. It's about living from the heart. It's about service to others. And if you believe in a higher power, in God, or in something greater than us, that again gives us additional meaning and purpose. If we understand that we experience life in those 4 realms, then it changes the way that we look at things, because we understand that we do need meaning, we do need purpose to inspire us, to motivate us. I was listening some time ago to a very interesting program, and it was an Army general who said, as a leader, he believes you've got to be in love with life, that you've got to have a passion, you've got to have a reason to get up in the morning. And if you think about, even for someone that might be in the military or was in the military, you did have a reason to get up because you were setting out to protect your country or to protect your people or protect freedom or democracy, etc. So again, to answer your question, we need to understand that there's this constant loop. Is there really a separation between mind and body? I don't think so.
No, I certainly do believe that. It's very interesting how people are dealing with all of these emotions, especially the anger and the frustration and things like that. You mentioned some strategies. You've talked about some strategies about dealing with emotions. Can you talk a little bit about those, Patrick?
And in my audio book, which again I'm giving to your audience for free without any name or email address, I offer specific strategies for each of these 7 umbrellas of emotion. But let's take one that you keep mentioning, anger. So let's look at anger, because this is a very interesting emotion. And first we need to separate that from frustration. Frustration is when you've got a goal and you can't achieve that goal. There's something right in front of you. There's an obstacle. There's something that's thwarting you from achieving your goal. That leads to frustration. Anger is when you feel hurt, injured, wronged, or you didn't get something you want. So it makes sense in this time where we either feel like someone's holding us back, we're feeling trapped, we're locked down, we can experience anger as well as frustration. Now, here's the interesting thing, so I can give you some strategies. Of all the emotions, if you take frustration, if you take sadness, if you take fear, uncertainty, loneliness, when you get together with a friend, someone that's going to listen to you and be empathetic and compassionate, and you express those emotions, it helps to lower the intensity of those emotions. However, with anger, if you get together with a friend and you keep repeating again and again, over and over, what it is that's angering you, it doesn't actually help you. There is a point where you begin to overvent. Now, if you are saying to me, Patrick, I want to tell you about this thing that's really making me angry and frustrated, and you say it once and then you leave it at that, you actually feel like you've released, that you've been able to express. If I in turn also express understanding, even if I don't agree with you, I go, wow, I understand why you're angry about this option. But if you continue to harp on about it, what it does is it continues to put you in the sympathetic nervous state. So that means that there's more adrenaline pumping through your body, and adrenaline, when not used for its primary purpose, is a poison. Adrenaline is created to make you fight or to run. That's the fight or flight response. But if you are angry and you're bringing up all of this adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and you've got nowhere to expend it, no way to use it, it just sits in your body and it takes a long time for your body to metabolize it. Meanwhile, it's a poison. So the first thing with anger is get clear, am I overventing and am I constantly feeding my mind and body with more angry thoughts, because that will not resolve the situation. Then I say, look at it and say, is my anger justified? We talk about righteous anger. We talk about self-righteous indignation. Is my anger truly justified? Because sometimes I always question my own beliefs, my own thoughts, my own values, my own emotions. I'm constantly reevaluating what I'm thinking and feeling. So question the anger, is it really justified? Now, next question, is it appropriate? And am I bringing too much anger to this situation? And what can I actually do about this? Because if you're just getting angry, you're in a situation where you truly can do nothing about it, ask yourself the tough question, is this being effective? Do you want to be right, or would you prefer to be effective? Because you might be right that your anger is justified, completely justified, but if you're directing it at the wrong person, the wrong institution, the wrong government body, or you're just directing it at the universe or the sky or the air, or your partner, your husband, your wife, whoever, it's not helping you. You might be right that it's justified, but if it's not effective, you are harming yourself. And the more you walk around with anger, the more you damage and undermine your relationships, and the more you'll end up with illness and disease, whether it's heart attack or stroke, high blood pressure. These are the results of constant, intense negative emotions.
Yeah. And I don't know if you would agree with this. My perspective on negative emotions, what do you call them? Anger, frustration, whatever. They are a tremendous source of power if you channel them with the right question and towards an outcome that you want. You can use that energy, but you're right. I think if it's just out there in the world, it's basically just noise. But anger, you can really challenge that and get a lot done.
Yes. Now you're talking about using that anger to motivate you to take the right action, to take positive action or action that's going to lead to a positive result. That makes sense. You also mentioned the term negative emotions. I mentioned it as well. In my audiobook, I do clarify that really no emotion is negative unless it's in the wrong context. So there are times to be angry. If you have to protect someone that you love because they're being attacked by someone, you need to get into that state of anger. You need to get that adrenaline pumping so you can take positive action to protect your partner. The same applies to fear or to sadness. Every emotion has an object and an objective. It has a purpose. It's when we are either stuck in that emotion, or we don't direct it in the right way, or we just continue to wallow in the emotion, and then it controls us instead of us controlling it.
Yeah. We have in my family, we have a description of that. It's called, there's a male and female version of it. It's called BTW. Oh no, the BTB, not BTB, BTB. And it's called Bring the Bitch. Because sometimes, he's like Patrick's like making eyes.
I don't know what that means. Go on, I'm curious.
Well, no. Sometimes you gotta bring that anger because you're in a situation where you gotta bring the bitch.
I agree with that.
You have it in there. Now, if it's out there all the time, then you're just a crazy woman.
Or a crazy man.
Well, and I told you there's a male component. See, if now sometimes a guy's got to be an asshole. And
right. I see.
But if you're an asshole all the time, or you're just actually, if you're difficult all the time, you're an asshole. Yeah. And so you're talking about appropriateness of emotions, and I would say that yes, don't think that it's always inappropriate to be aggressive, defending, whatever. Sometimes it's actually incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing football or if you're in some competition, you need to bring that anger. And there I'm talking about the anger, the adrenaline, the desire, the push. That makes complete sense. You've got to look at all the emotions and say, is this the right emotion for this situation? And I agree with you 100%. Let me offer you another strategy or a strategy for another emotion, because this is something that we've all experienced. We talked about anger and frustration. Another very common one is sadness. Sadness is a response to loss. If you feel that you've lost something, something you already had, something you thought you were going to have. Think about people who were expecting something in 2021, but as a result of the pandemic, their business is shut down or they've lost an opportunity. So sadness is connected to sorrow and grief. Grief is usually when we have intense loss. We usually talk about grief as a result of, losing a loved one, a death, passing of a loved one. Sadness is triggered by a sense of loss. And when we experience sadness, it's hard to get motivated, and we tend to, particularly if we're men, we tend to isolate or withdraw and then remain quiet. And it's very easy for us to lose our sense of hope. And again, what you've talked about, getting that motivation. So one of the things that I teach with sadness is first embracing whatever you feel. And Chris likes to repeat to me something that I teach.
Which one is probably the
you're allowed to.
Oh, you're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling, right? I think it's one of the things that, and this goes to the statement that not the emotions aren't negative. They're only negative if they're in the wrong context, and you're allowed to feel those emotions. And a lot of people spend a lot of time just suppressing those emotions and saying, oh, right now I'm feeling frustrated, but I don't have the right to feel frustrated, or whatever that is. And so I love that premise. You're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling.
And Orest, Chris has raised a good point, because as a result, if you deny or suppress or repress your emotions, guess what? It's going to impact your sleep, because you're going to wake up halfway through the night feeling angry or frustrated or having bad dreams or tossing and turning because the thoughts are still spinning in your head. So what I teach is you're allowed to feel whatever you feel. Embrace first the emotion. That means accept it. So number one, you've got to be willing to say, whatever I feel is okay. What matters is what I'm going to do with that feeling and how I'm going to respond to that feeling. So whether it's anger or frustration or sadness or hopelessness, it's okay to feel that feeling. Now, articulate that feeling. That means label it, describe it. Rather than just saying, I'm feeling bad, get clear about, well, what does that mean? Oh, I'm actually feeling sad. Now, what I teach is stand back from the emotion by saying these words to yourself. I notice that I'm feeling sad, or I notice that I'm feeling sadness. That's interesting. Now, what I just did in this very simple sentence is that I separated myself from the emotion. I didn't deny it, but I separated myself. Rather than just saying, I am sad, therefore that's part of me, that's who I am. I'm saying, I notice that I'm feeling sad, or I notice I'm experiencing sadness. Now, I might say, I notice I am sad. And then I'll go, well, wait a minute. Why am I feeling sad? So I'm not denying it. I notice I'm feeling sad. That's interesting. Why is that? Oh, I'm feeling sad because I've lost all these opportunities, or my company, I just lost another employee, or I lost that contract because of the pandemic. Now, accept that there is a loss. If it's something important to you and valuable, don't deny it and just say, oh, it wasn't important, or there'll be another one. You can spend some time saying, you know what, this really is a loss. This was important to me. This was valuable to me. Now, what do I want to do? What can I do next? And depending on what it is, for me, the pandemic, I ended up calling a lot of friends because I felt very sad about losing their friendship. Now, it wasn't lost forever, but we couldn't see each other. We couldn't hang out together. We couldn't do things. So I actually called people and said, you know, I was feeling really sad today because I was thinking about all the fun times we had. And as a result, you know, I'm missing you. So I responded to the emotion, and that gave that person to also say, yeah, I feel the same thing. And then we have a choice to comfort each other. And then you move from, okay, what else can I do about the sadness? Well, right now, that's a loss. Can I plan to get together with this person again? What can I plan to do to make up for the loss, if that's possible? And Orest, let me say this, please, that you know, it's one thing if we talk about losing business, losing money, but when we lose someone that we love, it's much more powerful. We can't just say, oh, I'll replace that person or it's not important. So don't deny that emotion. Don't deny the pain or the suffering, accept that part of the human experience, the entire human experience, includes an intense and wide range of emotions, from intense pain and suffering to intense joy and ecstasy. Be okay with it. That means it's part of who we are. It's part of the experience. Now look for people to comfort you and support you, to help you through the grieving. You can't run away from the grieving. You can't do this BS thing, which is be strong. What does that mean? So if I'm a father and I've just lost a child, maybe my daughter, and these are all true stories,
Sure.
was kidnapped, raped, decapitated, murdered. Should I just go, oh, I got to be strong? For whom? No, that's a real loss. That's an intense, deep loss. Let me experience that rather than pushing that emotion down that's then going to cause illness in my body. Let me turn to friends. Let me be completely open. Let me completely talk about, I am suffering. This is an intense loss. I don't know how to go on. And then people can offer you comfort, or they can listen to you at least, and just be there to listen and allow you to express yourself. Because another way to deal with intense emotions is the expression of those emotions. And you talked about it earlier. You can take that anger, you can channel it into something positive to get you moving, as you said, to bring your bitch or bring the bitch or whatever it is. So in our discussion so far, we've talked about how to deal with anger and frustration and how to deal with sadness, sorrow, and grief. And in my audiobook that I'm giving away for free to your audience without any name or email address is how to neutralize the 7 emotions that are holding you hostage right now. And that's an umbrella of emotions, because another strong one is loneliness. Loneliness isn't going to go away because as we all know, okay, the vaccine's rolling out, but how long is it going to take before that vaccine is given to 7 billion people? And how effective is it going to be? And what will each state, municipality, county do in terms of opening up or releasing the restrictions? Meanwhile, are we going to go back to where we were? Is everyone going to show up at an office? Are we going to have the same types of social events? Are they going to be en masse like they were? We don't know. But what it does do when we're stuck in our small space is it creates a sense of loneliness. And loneliness is basically the feeling that you're disconnected, that you're isolated. Because I can be in the same room as you, and if we don't have a connection, I can not be alone, but I can feel alone, which is really, I feel lonely. So I also in the audiobook give quite a few tips and strategies about how to deal with loneliness, because loneliness is a killer. Loneliness will shorten your lifespan. Loneliness will impact your sleep. So that's how Chris and I got together, because we recognized, well, it's a bit of a better story. I don't know if you want to hear the actual story. And then,
good.
you know, okay, so I'll let Chris tell the story because I've been talking a lot.
So basically, I give Patrick a call once, twice a week on the way home from work, and we kind of chat about these types of things. And one day I was like, Patrick, I don't know what's going on. I feel really tired. And he was like, Chris, you do realize there's a pandemic and like everybody's feeling stress and emotion, and really everyone's tired. I'm like, oh yeah, like what can we do about that? Like what specific thing? You know, we got my product that has some great testimonials about better sleep. And Patrick, as you just heard in although he was speaking for a long time, is all great stuff as Patrick usually provides. He put together this amazing book, this amazing meditation file. And we said, all right, like, how do we get on shows like Old Guy Talks to Me and share this with as many people as possible? And that's kind of the brief story of us getting together for this particular PR tour.
Yeah.
And Orest, you asked the question right at the beginning. You said, what's the link between the mind and the body? Now notice Chris had called me and he said, I'm feeling tired. What he didn't know when he was saying those words was beneath that feeling of tired was the emotion of sadness. In the very beginning of the pandemic, we were all feeling this heaviness and we couldn't articulate it. But what it really was sadness, a sense of loss, whether we lost freedom, we lost hope, We lost certainty, stability, security, and that loss is a thought. I've lost my security, I've lost my stability. What am I going to do next? What's happening? And there's these thoughts that are subconscious that we may not even be consciously saying that then create that sense of heaviness. The physical heaviness is the result of the emotion of either sadness or hopelessness or even loneliness. So see again how there's this link between the mind, the body, and the emotions.
Yeah, I think
The founder of SES Research and the creator of ESSC60, which is a powerful antioxidant. Now, this antioxidant was found to be beneficial by accident when laboratory mice that were given it lived twice as long as the ones that did not get it. That's right, 2 times as long. But other reports by people that have taken this powerful antioxidant talk about major benefits that they've seen in their lives. For me, I can speak about the benefits that I've had, as well as my wife. We've noticed, one, that our focus was significantly improved, and we were able to get more done because we were sharp. Secondly, our energy levels were higher. And those energy levels lasted late into the afternoon when you kind of have that dip in energy, start going a little foggy, not quite so clear, you're tired. Well, our energy levels were really high way into the afternoon. And for me, I slept better. I am a fitful sleeper. I'm a horrible sleeper, and I crave a good night's sleep. I started to sleep better when I had C60. Now, you may have different results, but I will tell you, it's worth a try. Now, Chris and his company are the major producers, the major manufacturers of C60. And most people who sell C60 on the market buy it from them and put it into their own formulations. But why would you do that? Why would you buy it somewhere else? When you can get high grade, high quality, highly tested C60 directly from the source. So what are you going to do? Click on the link below, order a trial, try it for a month. Use the promo code OldGuyTalks, one word, OldGuyTalks, and get $15 off your initial purchase. What do you have to lose? I think you have a lot to gain. Try it. Don't wait, don't hesitate, don't procrastinate. Get your C60 now. It may make a world of difference to you in the quality of your life. It did for us. Don't wait, don't hesitate, don't procrastinate. Do it now.
Yeah, I think in these times, a lot of people are trying to mitigate the sadness, the boredom, the lack of freedom, all of that. At the same time, we kind of started talk a little bit about sleep here, and I think that some people, and I'll admit to this, is that I am sleeping more than I used to, and
That's expected.
And I don't like that, to be frank, because I have a routine of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning usually, and sometimes I wake up earlier than that, and I just get up. If it's like if I wake up after 4 o'clock, then I just get up. I don't bother. But I find myself sleeping longer, not necessarily that I'm tired, but just sleeping longer. And as I said, I have a pretty regimented routine that I do up in the morning in terms of.
Do you think, Orest, that your goals or purpose have changed?
No, they haven't. Actually, they're stronger than ever, and things are moving in a much better direction in the last 4 months. I'm actually more focused on getting the results I want. So it's a unusual phenomenon. Maybe it's because it's so cold outside and dark.
Well, do you compare it to the same time last year? The same time last year, or the year before? Did you tend to sleep longer in the winter when it's cold?
Maybe I don't really recall. I mean, really, Patrick, I didn't really pay that much attention. I was never a very good sleeper, but I just think that a lot of times people are sleeping longer, and part of it may be because of just how they're feeling in general. But on most of the days, I work to get out of bed by 5 o'clock, and I do exercise, I do meditation, journaling, a whole bunch of other things that I do in the morning.
Can I ask you another question, Orest?
Sure.
Do you think that maybe you're sensing other people's emotions that might also be affecting your sleep? Because no matter how powerful we think we are, we still sense and are influenced and feel the emotions of other people. Studies show that you will be affected by your friends, even if you don't see those friends, but you talk to them on the phone or they're on social media, because we're taking those thoughts in.
Patrick, I'm not going to, it's, I'm pretty selective about who I hang with.
Okay.
I'm very selective. I have been for a long time. So my friends generally don't tend to be negative. I don't tend to be negative. I tend to be solution.
But what about what's
focused.
happening in society in general?
Oh,
you talk about anger and frustration.
Oh yeah, anger. Oh yeah, there's a lot of that. So that my question really is about dealing with it. But I think a lot of people may be sleeping more because of frustration or anger or whatever the emotions are, and the quality of sleep is it may not be as good, even though they're sleeping longer. So let's talk about things that we can do to improve the quality of sleep.
Well, Chris has some great tips.
So just Orest speaking slowly and smoothly with your radio voice can help. And actually, there's a good parallel with Patrick's book, his meditation file, overcome fear and anxiety and feel secure and confident. You can imagine he uses some pretty soothing voices in that. And that meditation file is phenomenal and would be a great thing to actually download. You can actually listen to it right there on the webpage. You can download it again. Patrick said it a couple of times.
Free.
Don't have to give an email. You don't have to give your name. It's not a marketing trap or whatever like that. I'm always nervous about giving an email because I'll be inundated. And aside from that, because I think that's really phenomenal, and getting the other book, Neutralize the Seven Emotions, getting that and reading through it and kind of applying what you can, because there are actionable steps. Those are great, and those will have a positive impact. There's a lot of things that you can do like tonight, right? So you could download the book and read it tonight. Most are probably not going to do that. They'll download it and read it over some time. What can you do tonight?
Listen to it.
And listen to it. Yeah. And what can you do tonight? I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can do like right away. And really, it's 5 o'clock here in Houston, maybe a little bit later. I know it's later where Patrick is. You might not be able to implement some of these, but you can actually do them tomorrow. You might not be able to do them today, but tomorrow. The first one I like to talk about, and all of these are related to sleep hygiene. And it's very well documented that sleep hygiene is just a fancy phrase for those habits that you have around sleep, right? And it's very well documented that when you have a good kind of regimented sleep hygiene, those habits, you get better sleep. Like that's really well documented. One of them is naps. By the way, we're all kind of, most of us are at home more often. We're on a couch for lunch more often, and we're probably napping more often. First and most important, taking a nap, the data is really clear, is good for your mental performance through the rest of the day, right? So if you're like feeling lazy because you're taking a nap, as long as you follow the guidelines I'm about to give you, don't. It actually is very well documented to give you better performance in the afternoon. Some of the things that you need to be careful of is an optimal length of time for a nap is 20 minutes. So if you're taking a 30+ minute nap, then that's actually going to interrupt your circadian rhythm, and that's going to affect your sleep that night, and that's going to just continue to propagate. So make sure that your naps are 20 minutes or less. Really, if you're going to take a nap, set that kind of emergency or last ditch effort of a 30-minute alarm to make sure you don't sleep past 30 minutes. But really 20 minutes is kind of ideal. The other thing about naps is if it's like it's later in the day right now, if you're thinking about taking a nap after 4, don't. To kind of use this lockdown vernacular, go walk the dog again. The dog may be driven crazy, but do something, get up and do something. Don't take a nap after 4, because that can also mess up your circadian rhythm. And your circadian rhythm is that thing that aligns our body with daylight and sunset. So sunrise and sunset. So as the sun is rising, we're kind of exposed to the sun. That's one good tip. Expose yourself to the sun so that you're receiving the right right waves, the right light waves. What that does is starts your circadian rhythm to say, hey, it's now time to get up and be active. Same thing at night. It's now time to slow down and get ready for sleep. And this is going to tie right into this next thing. It's related to electronics, right? So we all have these devices. We've got cell phones and tablets and computers. What a lot of us don't realize is they give off blue light. And I think, Orest, you've probably talked about this before. So you've got, have kind of recommended blue light blockers. But that blue light, what it does, and some people don't know this, what it actually does is it tricks our brain into believing it's the middle of the day, because that's when the blue light is available on Earth in general, and more prevalent. So when you're looking at these things that are giving off blue light, it's really tricking your brain again into thinking it's the middle of the day, and that can mess up your circadian rhythm. Most of these devices have a blue light blocker on them or a blue light filter. Set those on. I know Patrick, he actually keeps his on all the time. Other than, I don't know if you can see the photos behind him, he did those photos. Obviously, when he's doing photo work, he turns the blue light filter so he can get the colors accurate. But in general, he leaves his blue light filter all the time. I actually have my blue light filter come on about 2 hours before the sun sets. So I'm just not having the impact of that blue light on my circadian rhythm. The other thing with electronic devices, like, we're kind of wired for the little bits of information that these are giving, and it gives us little shots of endorphins, and in general, it's things that will keep us up. Our recommendation is don't charge it next to your nightstand. If you're using it for an alarm clock, get another device, get an alarm clock. Take that cell phone, tablet, whatever you may be taking into the bedroom, leave it outside, charge it outside the bedroom, charge it down the hall, charge it in the kitchen, whatever. The farther away, the better. Also put that device down about 2 hours before you're going to go to sleep.
And be aware, because this is a great point that Chris is talking about. Be aware, because it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Orest. Be aware that if you're constantly scrolling or doing doom scrolling, which is basically reading all the doom and gloom news, that's going to affect your sleep, because those thoughts enter your subconscious mind, and it creates this emotional state that everything's negative, everything's bad, and it can lead to more anger and frustration before you go to sleep.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've read an article once where our brains are wired to be very excited by little pieces of social information that have the potential to impact standing or awareness of our social environment, right? But that we were wired that way for small tribes, right? So if we learn about the guy 3 huts down, that little piece of social information can be really valuable. But our high school buddy who lives in another state and what's going on there, it still excites our minds, right, and our bodies, but it doesn't serve the purpose that it used to serve. So yeah, put those devices down. And then finally, some people like this, some people don't. Alcohol. If you're drinking alcohol, there's good research out there that suggests if you have one drink, usually it stops at about 1, no more than 2. There can be some health benefits associated with that. The problem with alcohol is that if you take, a lot of people believe if you take it right before you go to sleep, like that nighttime toddy will actually let you sleep. Now, it'll knock you out. That's what it does. It's a depressant, but it actually interrupts your sleep, and it doesn't allow you to get your REM and your NREM sleep. It's very much like the prescription drug industry. There's a really good book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and he talks about, and he's a Harvard professor, and it's a phenomenal New York Times bestseller, and he talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry, where you take these prescription medicines right before you go to sleep. They knock you out. You wake up, and there's a chemical in our body called adenosine that's actually part of the ATP processes in our mitochondria, to get a little geeky. But as adenosine builds up in our body, it causes a desire for sleep. These prescription drugs will have you wake up with, and it's relieved the chemical pressure of adenosine to desire sleep. So you wake up without the desire for sleep. But those depressants haven't allowed you to get your REM sleep and your NREM sleep. It's kind of like the opposite of MyVitalC, right? You take MyVitalC in the morning, our customers report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. If we're talking in terms of good sleep, there's not many things that you can do in the morning that can positively impact your sleep. In fact, I'm aware of exercise. So if you're going to exercise, in the morning is as good as any. If you do exercise in the morning, that will positively impact your sleep. If you get exposure to the rising sun, right? So you're an early riser, Orest. If you're kind of going for a quick walk or getting a little bit outside early on in the morning, that will positively impact your sleep. And then the only other thing I'm aware of, especially in terms of supplements, is My Vital C.
Yeah. So, Chris, let's talk a little bit about a few of the outlines, some of the things that people can benefit by taking your Vital C.
Yeah. So I always start with kind of my story. Really, I started taking it earnest in 2018. They can go back and listen to a previous podcast, and it's a good podcast about why I'm not even supposed to be in the supplement industry, never wanted to be in the supplement industry. And I'm still, actually what I'm proud of now is like bringing some credibility. We actually have a sleep study. So if you're watching, I'm holding up my Oura Ring, which is one of the better sleep trackers on the market. We're doing the sleep study with Oura Ring, and we're also doing a DNA age test and have some very interesting and original results from that. So as a supplement company, to be driving research is not typical. Typically supplement companies are like, we read some literature, here's whatever it is you think you're looking for, good luck. And we're like, hey, let's prove what we think is happening, what our customers are reporting to us that is happening. Let's go out and prove it scientifically. So the things that it's impacted me, I played soccer for 25 years. So I had a knee pain. When I started taking this on a daily basis in 2018, that knee pain went away. The other thing, I actually am really a geeky scientist. I have a spreadsheet back to 2014. I was tracking my migraines. I used to get 4 or 5 migraines per year, and I was tracking them to try and figure out, like, maybe it's something I ate, or I got too much exercise, or drank too much the night before, or whatever. Never really came up with a pattern, but I got 4 or 5 migraines per year until 2018, when I started taking My Vital C on a regular basis. I didn't get a single migraine in 2018. You couple that with my wife. She's used to get 9+ migraines per month. So not per year, but per month. And I remember the number 9 because she had a medication that was so strong the doctors would only prescribe 9 per month. So any migraine after the 9th, she just had to suffer through. And she did almost monthly. When she started taking My Vital C on a regular basis, she's down to 1 migraine every month, every other month. And so it's a pretty positive impact. We do know that the molecule ESS60 crosses the blood-brain barrier, and that might have some impact. Although we're talking about sleep, if you just get more sleep, your migraines will be better. Like, we understand that.
Sure. And some of the other benefits of taking ESS60?
Yeah, so the original research that kind of kicked off this industry was really a rat study that was published in 2012. And in that study, it was actually a toxicity study. They thought for some reasons that ESS60 would be toxic. So they gave it to rats. They gave rats water, rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with ESS60. Instead of being toxic, those rats given the My Vital C formula lived 90% longer than the control group, and they all died without tumors, right? So those are pretty, that's the single longest longevity result in experimentation, peer-reviewed, published experimentation ever. The next best way to live longer with good research is called calorie restriction. If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30% on a daily basis, you can extend your life by 30%. I call that the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. No one's really signing up for that diet. I haven't decided to put out a webpage to recruit people. Maybe it's a marketing thing. But yeah, if you're looking to live longer and you're looking at the literature, the best result right now is really My Vital C. And then I can share one of the studies that we're doing is a DNA age test, and we're pretty excited about this. I had a doctor out of Tempe, Florida, called me and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this protocol and I'm going to do this DNA age test. I'm like, hey, yeah, let me know. How can I help? And then about 6 months later, he called me and said, hey, I had 2 ladies go through this, and here was the protocol. So I had them take a DNA age test, and it's actually called DNA age. That's the brand and name of the test. And then I put them on a protocol that included My Vital C. The other protocol was NMN, which is kind of a la David Sinclair, who wrote an amazing book called Lifespan. That's one of the things that he recommends. So he had him on NMN and resveratrol and MyVital-C, and they took this DNA age test, and then 6 months later, they took another DNA age test. Now, I didn't know much about DNA age tests, so I went out and did some research. And apparently your goal in this kind of study is in 6 months, you only age 5 months, right? So you're slowing down the aging process. Well, instead of slowing down the aging process, the two participants, one of them, their age reverted by 1.8 years, and the other one reverted by 2.6 years, right? So an actual reversion of DNA age equivalent. And so he called me, he's all excited. We got to start this really big study. I want to change the DNA test because there's another company that's out there called True Age. So I want to use that one. It's actually called True Diagnostic is the company name, and the actual age test, DNA age test, is called True to Age. And I'm like, hey, if we're going to change tests, we're going to change some protocols. Let's start a 4-person study. Let's do that first. So that's already started. They've already done. In fact, they should be done. I thought to send an email to him today to just check, but I think they've already drawn blood on the second part of that. And that's off to get the second DNA age test, so we can see like what happened in that 3-month period. We're only doing 3 months there. So that's pretty exciting. And it makes sense. You know, you have these rats that live 90% longer. They died without tumors. You do a DNA age test. You take the product for some period of time. Same with our sleep study. You kind of map out your current sleep profile, get on our product and look at the sleep profile. We're seeing the results that our customers are reporting to us.
Yeah. So Chris, and I know you don't mention this, but I will. Your company is the #1 producer of C60. Is it in the U.S. or the world?
In the world.
In the world. And what percentage of the C60 that you do not manufacture, that's manufactured by using your stuff, is out there? So basically what I'm asking is that if somebody's buying C60, the chances of it being your C60 is actually pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty high. And I think maybe more important that is, if it's not our C60, it's C60 from China.
Yeah. And let's talk about the importance of purity, because I just had this discussion with another person when we were talking about actually peptides.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the importance of purity and how minuscule the changes are before it becomes less effective.
Yeah, well, so you've got there's a couple of issues that are here, right? And I would narrow it down to 3. So one, does the lab or manufacturing facility actually know what they're doing? I think that's pretty important. 2, what is the purity of the original product? And then what is the ultimate result, which is in terms of concentration, which is more related to the quality of lab that you're in. So let me speak to us as a lab that manufactures a product for human consumption. So we've been manufacturing carbon 60 and now ESS 60 since 1991. Our parent company, in the original rat study that I've mentioned, where the rats live 90% longer, they used our C60, really our ESS 60, in that specific test, and we were actually mentioned in the publication. So SES Research, parent company, was mentioned in that parent company. So we are the origin of this particular industry. From 1991, really until 2018, when we decided that we were going to kind of throw our hat into the supplement ring, we only sold to research institutions around the world. And the difference between people who produce C60 and olive oil, MCT oil, or avocado, whatever oil, is they've just been producing it for a couple of years, and they've only ever sold a product to a consumer base that has no idea how to test their product. Right? Mm-hmm. So you, Orest, if you went out to some competitor and bought some industrial C60 and olive oil, and they said it was XYZ purity, you just don't have the facilities to be able to test it. I mean, you could farm it, send it out and spend $150 and get it tested, but like people don't do that. from 1991 until 2018, the only people we sold material to were researchers. And when researchers received our material, they typically handed it to a grad student or a research associate who took it back into their back lab and actually tested the material to make sure that it was the pure material that we said it was going to be. So our pedigree is we've got to deliver an amazing product, or they're going to test it, find out that it's not amazing, and send it back and get a refund, right? So we've never operated in this, our customers can't test the quality of our material. We actually went out and bought like 22 of the best, quote unquote, well, brands of C60 on the market. And what we found is that they were woefully low in concentration, that in general, they don't have what they say they have in them. Some of them as low as 1% or 0.1%, and some of them a lot closer. So what it tells me is that they don't have well, really what we know is they don't have the equipment as they're producing a batch to continually test their batch and know that their batch has reached full concentration. So full concentration in olive oil is about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter. And avocado is 0.6 milligrams per milliliter, and an MCT oil is about 0.3, 0.35 milligrams per milliliter. So right at about a third.
So Chris, does that mean the highest concentration is in olive oil?
It's in olive oil. So there's a lot, like
I'm taking that one.
Yes. So one of the competitors that is out there, their first 3 years on the market, they were only selling MCT, right? So you got this beautiful purple liquid and they're selling it. And it actually said 0.8 milligrams per milliliter on the original bottle. Turns out
it's not.
You can't get 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in MCT. So it just speaks to the scientific efficacy of that organization. Like they just said, oh, well, we can swap out olive oil with MCT oil. We're not actually testing our product, but we can, spin it, mix it for 2 weeks like the original protocol. And clearly that should be 0.8. And it's not. Like it's not. And that's some of the challenges that you see when you come to.
But that's a great point you make.
Yeah.
But now you know that depending on which oil it's being used, olive oil has the highest concentration,
yes,
followed by avocado, followed by MCT. You were very gracious in the way you describe it. I wouldn't describe a company that's lying to you and telling you it's that concentration when it's not. I wouldn't say that speaks to their efficacy. I would say that speaks to their lack of integrity, whether it's determined by the fact that they haven't tested. Sorry, Orest, I'm just BTB.
But you don't want to be getting letters with a whole bunch of last names that end in JD.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the whole point of.
Hey, I was just
be gracious.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
well,
I'm just expressing an opinion.
I am very altruistic in these cases because there is actually a guy in the industry, quote unquote, who sells a product that literally has no C60 in it. And it hasn't had C60 in it for years, and it's probably never going to have C60 in it. And he's written amazing, they're actually very well written, quote unquote, scientific papers proving that his product does have C60 in it. But if you're a scientist who knows how to actually read those papers, what those papers do is prove that there's no C60 in the product. Like it's impressive, and I desperately want to believe that he just doesn't know that he doesn't have C60 and doesn't want to believe that he doesn't have C60, but it's really hard, even as altruistic as I am.
That's beyond gracious.
Yeah.
That's
but okay.
So there will be a link in the program notes with a coupon to get some money off your initial purchase of C60. Patrick, if anybody wants to reach out to you.
Well, I can tell them the best way to do this, right? Because we've actually got the link for you, and it's myvitalc.com/old-guy-sleeps. Right? So sleeps, old guy sleeps, right? You see what we did there? We're so very creative. When they go to that link.
You're making me feel like Rip Van Winkle now.
I didn't say that's the result of listening to your podcast.
Because he's very gracious.
Of listening to the books, and actually, hopefully trying my product if you're interested.
Okay.
When you go to that link, myvitalc.com/old guy sleeps, you can download the book. Again, no email required, no name required. There's also at the bottom of that page 2 links. One of them is over to Patrick Wanis, patrickwanis.com. Patrick writes an amazing, like the stuff you heard in the first part of it, of this podcast, amazing stuff. He puts that level of stuff into a weekly newsletter. Make sure you sign up for that newsletter. Of course, you will have to give your email for the newsletter. So do that. Also know, like, if you felt
Patrick, what about a physical address? Will you mail it to me?
If you really want me to, but you'll have to pay for the printing costs. Because I stuff it in there.
You probably got a sense that Patrick understands people, even kind of his questions for you, Orest, about, hey, what's impacting your sleep? He does that in what's called SRTT, Subconscious Rapid Transformation Technique. It's a process that he created. It's absolutely amazing. I do it about once a quarter to make sure really that what's internal and often driving that I'm not aware of and often holding me back is taken care of. That's what he does. He doesn't do this and like, oh, let's get together once a week and we'll chat about your challenges. No, it's about, hey, let's dig in, understand what was causing the problem.
Resolve it. Get to the root cause.
Let go of the emotions, let go identify the root cause and kind of understand how it needs to be processed so that you can really just get on with your life. So like, know that you can do that there. There's also another link. It goes to My Vital C kind of homepage, although, it goes to the My Vital C homepage. And when you go to that homepage, you can pick up a bottle of My Vital C for about $99. If you go on subscription, we give a substantial discount. It's like a 25% discount for subscription. Go ahead and get on subscription. Take advantage of that discount. You can cancel it literally at any time. We have like 500 5-star reviews on Google. We do not train our team to talk you out of getting, of your subscription. We actually just do an amazing job of customer service in addition to having an amazing product.
All right. Well, Patrick, Chris, I want to thank you. Lots of actionable items, lots of things that you can do to work on your sleep hygiene, to work on your mental state, to work on your life, improving the quality of your life. So I appreciate it. I want to thank you for coming on and your generous offers, which will all be in the program notes. And I just want to say that, remember, at oldguytalkstome.com, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love.
Now, I want to make sure that you do 3 things. 1, subscribe so you don't miss any of these episodes. 2, share it with your friends because they need to hear this information also to get this stuff so they can have a kick-ass life. And 3, review this podcast. And if you've got a bad review, that's fine too. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe, share, and review. Until next time, remember, it's all about creating a kick-ass life for yourself and those that you love.